Good evening, dear ones. Let us begin simply, quietly, as a family would gather in a living room and breathe. We have come with a hunger we cannot satisfy by more words, and we can admit it without shame. Most of us were trained to pray as if God were somewhere else, needing our alerts, our updates, our well-crafted sentences to get His attention. We were taught to reach, to try, to improve the phrasing, to add a little fervor, a little bargaining, as if love could be coaxed by the right tone of voice. And we have all known the strange fatigue that follows, repetition upon repetition, mental effort upon effort, bargaining and then self-correction, and then more bargaining, until we rise from the chair with the very same burden we carried in. If prayer leaves us strained and unchanged, it is because we still use prayer as effort rather than entering prayer as communion. Now let us ask the simple questions that undo an ocean of strain. If God is omniscience, what information are we supplying? If God is love, whom are we trying to persuade? Can you not see that the one who knoweth what things ye have need of cannot be improved by our briefings? The moment we set out to inform, we betray that we have in our hearts a God who may not know. The moment we set out to persuade, we confess a God who may not care. And then we wonder why the heart is weary. It is weary because it is trying to use prayer to make a God, when all the while God is, or else God isn't. Take no thought. That is not laziness. It is the doorway out of anxious prayer into communion. It is not a command to neglect life. It is the invitation to stop carrying life on our own shoulders while reciting spiritual words like a charm. Take no thought means lay down the private project of managing God. Be satisfied, just for this hour, to let God be God. When the mind is not outlining, the heart can listen. And when the heart listens, prayer ceases to be something we perform and becomes something received. Prayer is something from God to you. How are we to pray? Not by lengthening the speech, but by shortening the reach. Not by perfecting the argument, but by yielding the arguer. We are not gathered for new phrases to add to our collection. We are here for a new way to be, so that prayer may happen to us. Fear not, little flock. If tonight we will consent to rest, no persuasion, no information, no pressure, then in the hush that remains, we will find that we are not striving toward a far country. We are home, and the Father's pleasure is to give. In that hush, let us face the axiom that will either free us tonight or send us home to more striving. God is, or else God isn't. There is no third possibility. If God is, then omnipotence is not under negotiation, and love intelligence is not in suspense waiting for our verdict. If God isn't, then all our prayers, all our techniques, all our right thinking are swinging an elephant around our head with the left hand, impressive to ourselves and useless to the situation. Now, the strange thing is that most praying tries to hold both positions at once. We say God with our lips, and we say another power with our fear. We bow our heads to the Father and then secretly enthrone the problem. Can you not see the contradiction? We sit to pray and rehearse the symptoms, the balance sheet, the words the enemy spoke. We light a candle to God, but we keep glancing over our shoulder at the shadow, asking whether it agrees to be dismissed. If omnipotence is truth, what is this power that we are fighting? If there is one presence, what is this other presence that we are resisting? The moment we take up arms to wrestle a condition, we have already conceded it a throne. We have moved our prayer into a courtroom where fear is judge, the problem is prosecutor, and God is called as a witness for the defense. That is not prayer. That is theater. Take no thought is the instruction that dismisses the court. Your Father knoweth closes the case before it opens. The battle is not ours. In truth, there is no battle, because there are not two powers. Resist not evil. Do not harden your face at that, as if I am asking moral indifference. No, let me say first, it is because we love righteousness that we must refuse to confer power on appearances. To resist is to certify. To struggle is to pledge allegiance. To fear is to worship at a rival altar. Resist not evil is the spiritual poise that says within, God is, and therefore this thing that presents itself as power is without law, without substance, without mandate. Drop it out of your belief, and it falls away. Not because you have improved conditions, but because you have awakened to the fact that there is nothing there to improve. Spiritual healing is never truth over error. It is truth realized, before which error has no audience. All right, how do we stand in that? We do not argue with the appearance, for argument is a rope that ties us to it. We do not plead with God to do what divine love is. We retire from the wrestling mat, not in defeat, but in recognition. We turn from the scene, inwardly, not neglecting duty outwardly, and we let silence have its rightful office. In that silence, the second power cannot live, for it breathes only in our attention. When two powers end in us, prayer begins in God. We are ready then for the only real act of prayer, not speaking, not pushing, not correcting, but receiving. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Fear not, little flock. In the instant we stop enthroning the problem, the Word has room to be the law of our awareness, and the kingdom that is the Father's good pleasure finds entrance. Let us let the Master speak and settle the point for us. Your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. And again, fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. If these two sentences stand, as they must, then the whole apparatus of petition collapses beneath them. What are we doing telling omniscience the state of our affairs? Whom are we trying to persuade when love has already set its own nature as perpetual giving? Take no thought is not a sweet embroidery for the wall. It is the end of prayer as negotiation and the birth of prayer as communion. Never again can you tell God anything you need. Never again can you go before the throne with an inventory as though you were informing, persuading, or moving Him. You see, to inform is to confess that God may not know. To persuade is to suspect that God may not care. To move is to imply that God may not be already moving as infinite good. We cannot carry those suspicions into prayer and expect rest. Now, let me hasten to say, this is no ban on human feeling. We may come with our tears. We may come with our weariness. We may come with the ache of the day. But we do not bring our ache to talk God into goodness. We bring it to lay it down in the presence that already is goodness. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. Come, yes, but come to unburden, not to bargain. Think of it in the simple way of family. When you go to visit your mother, you do not arrive with a speech to prove your worth or a list to secure her affection. You go to be in her presence. You sit, you share, you rest in a love that has never been for sale. Why should prayer be less than that? Why should we stand at the door of the Father and argue a case that love has already ruled upon. We go within not to present demands, but to receive presence. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. And in that hearing, prayer becomes what it truly is, something from God to you. We make a vacuum of ourselves. We cease using truth to get results. Now truth can use us. Do you see the reversal? The kingdom is not a future medal for correct wording. It is the present reality that appears when words subside and receptivity begins. Your Father knoweth, frees the tongue from outlining, and opens the heart to the still small voice. Not speech, but consent. Not planning, but yielding. Not reaching, but resting in the fact that the giver has already given himself. Take no thought for the form. Let the life of God interpret itself within you. Petition is based on separation, the anxious picture of a distant deity to be notified and a reluctant power to be roused. True prayer begins where that picture ends, in trust. We drop the preface and the plea, and we sit as children who know the house is ours because the Father's pleasure is to give. Fear not, little flock. Be very still, and let the certainty of His knowing and His giving become the prayer in you. Then the silence is not empty, it is full of the word that heals, guides, and carries the day. Now comes the reversal that changes everything. Prayer is not primarily what you or I say to God. Prayer is what God is forever saying within us when there is no one left to interrupt. Prayer is something from God to you. The personal self has been making speeches. The spirit has been waiting to speak. I can of mine own self do nothing, not even pray rightly. Do you see how merciful this is? We have been tiring ourselves trying to reach a God afar, when the kingdom has been pressing upon the door of consciousness, asking only for a hearing. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. That sentence turns the chair around. We face inward, we lay down the cleverness, the pleading, the plan, and we consent. To make a vacuum of ourselves is not to despise ourselves or to deny honest human feeling. No, let me say first, it is to empty the mind of outlining, to abandon the anxious architecture by which we try to steer God into our desired streets. It is to cease deciding beforehand how love must appear, in what sequence, by what hour. It is to stop bargaining with the infinite as if we held the timetable. The vacuum is simply interior space, uncluttered by mental blueprints, where the word can be the word. Take no thought, not because thought is evil, but because thought is noisy, and the still small voice does not shout over the clatter of a managing mind. There is a counterfeit that must be exposed, the attempt to make prayer a technique. Affirmations, right thinking, mental treatments, we have all tried them, and for a while we imagine we can swing the universe around our head with a left hand. But hear me gently and clearly, you cannot use truth. Truth can use us. Whenever we set out to use truth, the little self remains on the throne, issuing formulas like edicts and calling the results demonstrations. That is not prayer, that is metaphysical manipulation. Still two powers, still a private will straining to marshal God as an ally against an opposing force. If omnipotence is truth, what are these levers you are pulling? Drop them out of belief, and they fall away. All right, how do we move from using to being used? By reversal, by surrendering initiative to the presence. We enter the quiet, not to perform silence as a trick, but to yield the floor. We let the inner posture be, Father, here am I. We do not time the presence. We do not audit the silence. We do not look over our shoulder to see if a result is forming. We wait as one who trusts the nature of God. Your Father knoweth. Fear not, little flock. The waiting is not emptiness. It is lawful readiness. In that readiness, impressions come, not always in words, sometimes as peace that needs no sentence, sometimes as a simple next step that carries its own authority. Resist not evil belongs here. When the mind stops resisting, it stops conferring power. In non-resistance, we are not passive. We are available. And in availability, the Word takes the initiative, guides, corrects, heals, without our frantic steering. The difference is entire. From self-directed prayer to God-directed awareness. From effort to consent. From many words to the one word that is life. Take no thought. Be still. Let truth use you, and prayer will no longer be your performance. It will be God's utterance, finding in you its living echo. Now let us take Samuel's line as our whole method. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. If prayer is something from God to you, then this is the simplest, purest posture of true prayer. Not, listen, Lord, thy servant speaketh, but speak. Not, here is my plan, but here am I. This one turning of the heart is the hinge upon which the door of communion swings. We do not begin by manufacturing a mood. We begin by yielding a will. Take no thought. We let go the reins without letting go reverence, and we allow the Word to be Word within us. How are we to listen? With an attitude that is alert, tender, expectant, yet not scanning for signs as if the sky must flash before God is present. Expectancy is not curiosity. It is trust. Tenderness is not sentimentality. It is the softening of self-assertion so that thy servant heareth is true. Alertness is not tension. It is availability. We are not forcing messages, not hunting for a sentence to take home as a souvenir, not manufacturing peace like a product on a line. Silence is not a technique to be mastered. It is communion, living contact with intelligence that knows and love that gives. Fear not, little flock. This silence is not empty neutrality. It is the presence, and the presence is fullness. All right, what of thoughts? If thoughts rise, do not wrestle. Resist not evil. To resist is to animate. To fight is to feed. You and I have no need to conduct a broom through the mind. Let the wave move past while you rest in the sea. If fear rises, do not make a project of eliminating fear. Return to the fact, God is, or else God isn't. Settle there. Take no thought for the content that floats by. Take thought only to surrender the taking of thought. If the body fidgets, let it settle of itself. If you catch yourself testing the silence to see if it is working, smile within and turn again. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. That little turning is the whole discipline. We build this listening attitude by a gentle interior reversal, repeated as often as needed. We retire a sentence or two from the lips. Father, here am I. And then we refrain from adding, and here is what I want you to do. We make a vacuum of ourselves, which is only to say, we stop outlining outcomes and stop timing God. We are not using silence to pry open heaven. You cannot use truth. Truth can use us. So we sit as usable ones. We consent to reality. We trust that the Father's knowing is the law of this moment, and we rest without checking our watch for a result. In a few moments, we will enter that stillness together, but understand beforehand what we are and are not doing. We are not doing silence to get health, supply, guidance. We are consenting to the health that God is, the supply that God is, the guidance that God is, to announce itself in us. If words are needed, the Word will provide them. If peace is the message, peace will carry its own sentence. Be still. Take no thought. Say within, with all the honesty you have, "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth." Then let God be God in your awareness, and let the rest fall away like shadows at noon. All right, let us be still together. Let the jaw unclench. Let the tongue rest from touching the roof of the mouth. Loosen the grip of the shoulders. Let them drop like a cloak released. Soften the belly. Let the breath find its own pace without your supervision. Open the hands or rest them gently, as you would when visiting your mother and simply being glad to be home. There is no ritual to perform, no posture to achieve. As you are, be. Take no thought even for how well you are taking no thought. Now lay aside the errands of the mind. Release the need to solve, to rehearse, to justify, to predict. The next phone call can wait. The ledger can wait. The memory of yesterday's word can wait. Take no thought. Let that be your gentle interior instruction. Take no thought for the body's report, the clock's suggestion, the world's headlines. Lay down, for this holy interval, the case you have been building for or against yourself. We are not here to improve God, to improve a self, or to improve a scene. We are here to be still and know. Quietly acknowledge, God is. Not as a magic phrase, but as the fact in which all true prayer rests. God is, or else God isn't. Settle that, and the noise is finished. Whatever problem presents itself just now, however urgent it claims to be, refuse it the dignity of power. Resist not evil. To resist is to crown it. To fear is to worship it. We are not entering the courtroom of fear to argue evidence. Your Father knoweth. Therefore we return, again and again, to the wordless assurance. God is. Now we make a vacuum of ourselves. We set aside words, images, outlines. If a thought comes, let it pass as a cloud against a high sky. No brooms in the mind, no shooing of birds. Let them fly. If a plan tries to unfurl, fold it kindly and place it on the table by the door. We do not need it to breathe. If you notice yourself timing God or testing the silence to see if it is working, smile and let the testing thought pass too. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. That is all. You cannot use truth. Truth can use us. We are not manufacturing communion. We are consenting to it. Hold a quiet expectancy, not a demand. Speak, Lord, and if no sentence forms, let the stillness itself be the speech. Perhaps there is a warmth across the chest, a breadth in the breath, a loosening in the face. Perhaps there is only a gentle plainness. Be satisfied. Your Father's knowing is law to this moment. If restlessness taps at the window, do not get up to entertain it. Return to the simple altar within. God is. Take no thought. Fear not, little flock. It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, and he withholds nothing from his own self-expression. Remain a few breaths more. letting the silence do its own work. Do not seize the stillness. Let it hold you. In this surrendered quiet, we do not reach God. We discover we were never outside His presence. When you open your eyes, do not leave here. Carry the thread of this hush like a line through the day. No fireworks are required. Communion is often dawn rather than lightning, the sure brightening of what already is. Give thanks without words if thanks arises. Take no thought, and let the word keep its own hour in you. Healing, then, is not achieved by wrestling with conditions, but by ceasing to furnish them with our fear and our arguments. When we stop fighting appearances, we stop feeding them. When we stop granting them reality, they begin to diminish in our experience. Resist not evil is not a strategy to get rid of evil. It is the realization that there is only one law, one life, one presence. In the atmosphere of that realization, the scarecrow of terror has no breath. Take no thought. We do not stand at the windmill with a sword. We retire into the sanctuary and let the wind reveal itself as nothing. Spiritual healing is not truth over error. It is not the personal mind hurling holy sentences at a problem as stones at a window. It is entering spiritual consciousness, awareness that God is all, that unveils the non-law of every discord. God is, or else God isn't. If God is, then what so-called power is issuing subpoenas to your peace? Drop it out of belief, and it falls away. You cannot use truth to fix appearances. Truth can use you to bear witness to what is already so. In that witness, treatment is unnecessary because presence is sufficient. Your Father knoweth. When the Father's knowing is allowed to be law in your awareness, the need for strain evaporates. Consider the Master before the tomb. There is no frenzy in him, no clinic of techniques, no committee of fears. He lifts his eyes. Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And then, from realized consciousness, not from anxiety, he speaks the word. Lazarus, come forth. That is not argument. That is authority. The authority of one who has no second power in his heart. Again and again the record shows the same climate. Peace, be still. Rise, take up thy bed and walk. Not formulas, but the effortless exhalation of realized oneness. Now, how does this look on Tuesday afternoon, when the letter arrives, the report is unfavorable, the quarrel erupts? Silence first. We do not consult fear's courtroom. We do not examine the Exhibit A of symptoms or add up the columns as if lack possessed a statute. We return within. God is. Your Father knoweth. We make a vacuum of ourselves, and we let peace be peace until its own instruction rises. Then action, if any, will be given. Perhaps a phone call made without defensiveness. Perhaps an apology spoken without self-accusation. Perhaps a step in our affairs that carries the quiet authority of right timing. But do you see? The doing proceeds from realization, not from panic. Fear loses its argument when it is no longer debated. Let it deliver its opening statement to an empty room. We neither resist nor agree. We abide. Resist not evil is the end of deputizing fear as advisor. We take no thought, not because we neglect life, but because we refuse to crown an appearance with law. From that poise, healings, of body, of relationships, of affairs, appear as the natural fruit of one presence realized. Fear not, little flock. It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And in that giving, there is no rival power, no contrary statute, no struggle. Only the word fulfilling itself where it finds consent. Abiding, then, is the natural next step. If healing and guidance appear in the atmosphere of realized oneness, what shall prevent us from remaining in that atmosphere? Prayer is not an event bracketed by an opening and a closing Amen. It is the climate of a life that stays within the Word, the way a branch stays within the vine, not occasionally attached, but living by the same life. The power of silence is not a momentary calm. It is abiding so continuously that the Word carries the day. When silence ceases to be an interlude and becomes a habitation, action loses its strain, decisions lose their panic, and love finds channels ready-made. I can of mine own self do nothing. That is not defeatism. It is the announcement of liberty. The personal mind's outlining is the root of fatigue. It is the planner, the calculator, the private architect who keeps a ledger of outcomes and worries whether God will sign off. Let that one retire. Take no thought. When we relinquish the seat of the director, we do not fall into chaos. We fall into order. Divine order that does not argue with our day, but informs it from within. You discover that release from self-sufficiency is not loss of efficiency. It is the end of wasted motion. You stop pushing the river. The current carries. How shall we abide? With a simple rhythm. Build into your day brief halts where the soul turns homeward. 30 seconds, no more is needed, to stop and remember, God is. At the kettle, at the door, at the red light, before you open the email. When the phone rings, let it ring once more while you say within, Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. You are not performing a charm. You are consenting to presence. Take no thought. Drop the outline. Let the inner assurance appear on its own schedule. These little pauses stitch the hours together into one garment of awareness, and you will notice a strange and gentle authority entering your steps. The Word has begun to live your day. This is the identity shift that abiding achieves. From asker to hearer. From operator to instrument. From anxious planner to one led by an inner yes or no that bears its own peace. You cannot use truth. Truth can use us. In abiding, we are usable, sails raised, rudder free of panic, ready for the wind that knows its way. Speech becomes lighter because it arises as response rather than assertion. Work clears because the next right thing announces itself without your rehearsal. Relationships soften because the need to win gives way to the willingness to love. Now, boundaries. We will not turn this into superstition, counting pauses as if we were earning divine notice. Nor will we slide into passivity, calling laziness trust and indecision guidance. Resist not evil does not forbid action. It forbids fear's authorization. Let silence govern speech and movement. Sometimes the word will lead you to be quiet when the tongue is itching. Sometimes it will send you to make a call you have postponed, to give an apology without self-accusation, to sign a paper or decline a deal. Notice the fruit. Where the word leads, there is a low, steady light of rightness, not frenzy, not the tremor of self-importance. Your Father knoweth. Trust that knowing enough to let it pace you. Abiding is simply staying home in God through the day. No grand performance, only frequent, honest return. God is. Take no thought. Speak, Lord. And as this becomes your way, you will find that you are not carrying the day. The day is being carried in you. Fear not, little flock. It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, not at intervals, but as a continuous gift. Remain, and let the gift give itself. Now let us make it plain, for a life must have a rule if it is to become steady. We will set before ourselves a few things we will no longer do, and what we will do instead. Not as law to earn anything, but as willingness to stop interrupting what God is forever giving. We will no longer beg for supply. The ravens neither sow nor reap, and the Father feedeth them. Your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. We will no longer plead for love or approval, as though affection were a ration dispensed upon good behavior. We will no longer battle illness with words, hurling verses at appearances in the hope that noise can heal. We will no longer outline outcomes to God, not the method, not the timing, not the agent by which our desire must arrive. We will no longer bargain. If you do this, I will do that. For love has no marketplace. We will no longer practice guilt as prayer, confessing unworthiness to move the heart of one whose nature is already giving. We will no longer make fear our counselor, drafting plans that are really evasions and calling them prudence. We will no longer try to use truth. You cannot use truth. Truth can use us. What then replaces all this? Recognition replaces request. God is, or else God isn't. Settle it and rest there. Gratitude replaces bargaining. Thankfulness without a shopping list, without timing, without a quiet, if only. Listening replaces lecturing. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. We make a vacuum of ourselves, no outline, no stopwatch, and consent to presence. Non-resistance replaces struggle. Resist not evil. We do not sign the warrant that gives an appearance authority. We let peace announce its own next right step. Do not mistake this for the end of responsible planning. We may keep a calendar, draft a budget, choose an hour for a task. That is human order. It is good housekeeping. But we do not consult fear for our counsel. We do not outline to God the chain of events by which the plan must succeed. We hold plans lightly, subject to the inner nudge that carries its own quiet certainty. If the word shifts the hour, we shift gladly. If the word cancels the meeting, we cancel without drama. Take no thought. Your Father knoweth. Here is a simple rule you can live by, in every doorway of the day. First, pause. Second, say within, God is. Third, take no thought. Lay down the outline, the worry, the clock. Fourth, speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Fifth, rest. Be still long enough for peace to arrive without your push. Sixth, rise to the next right step that presents itself, bearing its own peace. That is all. Prayer is something from God to you. Fear not, little flock. It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Spiritual discipline is not more words. It is the courage to stop outlining and to live from what is received in silence. Be satisfied with that, and let the word carry the day. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Let that be the benediction upon everything we have said. We are not an audience begging the distant ruler of a hard land. We are a family held in the household of love. Your Father knoweth. When that sentence becomes home to you, prayer loses its strain. We put no case before love. We rest in love's self-giving nature. Take no thought. God is, or else God isn't. Settle it, and be still. Our journey has been simple, though the habits we left behind were not. We have come from the fatigue of noisy petition to the ease of communion, away from trying to reach God into receiving His speaking. From believing in two powers, we have taken our stand in one. Resist not evil. We have learned that you cannot use truth. Truth can use us. We have discovered that prayer is not our speech to God, but God's word finding hearing in us. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. And we have watched how healing flows, not by contesting appearances, but by realizing presence until the scarecrow drops its posture. It is all one movement, from resisting to realizing, from performing to consenting, from self-direction to abiding. Now, as we turn to live this, do not measure your prayer by fireworks or by the temperature of your sensations. Measure by fruit. Has fear lost a little of its voice? Is there more readiness to forgive, more kindness in speech, a cleaner, quieter decision-making? Does clarity come without your straining for it? These are the signs that the vine is feeding the branch. Peace, even a small peace, is evidence enough. Be satisfied. Your Father knoweth. For the week ahead, let us make a simple, honest commitment. Each day, grant 1 period, 10 minutes if you can, 5 if you must, of receptive silence. No outlining, no petition. Only, Father, here am I. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Then, thread the hours with brief pauses, before decisions, before replies, before you lift the hand to act. 30 seconds. God is. Take no thought. Consent. In those small doorways, you will feel the word pacing your steps. Silence in prayer is not emptiness. It is trust, resting in the Father's already given kingdom. We are not engineering outcomes. We are abiding in omnipresence and letting it interpret itself as our day. Fear not, little flock. The kingdom is not earned, it is given. And now, without effort, without promise, without a plan to show God, we will be still, take no thought, and see what the Father has to say to us.